Hey folks, this is Positive Connections Radio, Halt and Call for Backup, episode 117, Self-Forgiveness.
This podcast and its related websites and social media content represents the opinions of Mike Koch and Jim McLintock and their guests. Listener discretion is advised. It may contain talks about suicide, death, shootings, and other traumas related to emergency responders. This message is intended as a warning to those who might be triggered.
All right, so Jim, let's talk about the journey to self-forgiveness and letting go of the past. What do you think?
I love the topic of self-forgiveness because it's one of the things that really seems to hold a lot of our clients back into moving into their healthy new future.
Right. Well, what is self-forgiveness? And if you could think of these questions too, have you ever vowed to never forgive yourself? Do you feel like you don't deserve to forgive yourself? Or have you ever thought about or contemplated how you can forgive yourself? So hopefully with this podcast, we can shed some light on all that. We can define what self-forgiveness is and why it matters, identify some common barriers to self-forgiveness, and learn some tools. I'm all about solutions, Jim, right? We both are. If we learn something, we want to know some tools that we can take with us and use to deal with this. And in recovery, and it's just generally, a lot of times we hold on to this lack of forgiving ourselves for things in the past.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we see neuroplasticity having its say. We've developed these habits, maybe since childhood, maybe the way we were raised, that we hang on really tight to not forgiving ourselves, to beating ourselves up. We either don't give ourselves permission for it, or we don't want to go there for whatever the reasons are. And it's really, really important to remember that we are on this planet together. Welcome to it. We are all human. None of us are perfect. We all make mistakes. And how quickly, notice this, Mike, how quickly we can accept the apology from somebody else who says they're sorry for something. Hey, no problem, Mike. No big deal. It's
right.
Gotcha, bro. Let's move on. But when it comes to ourselves, hey, Jim, you should forgive me talking to myself. Hey, Jim, you should forgive yourself. And I don't. What's going on with that? What is that's happening there that I can forgive others so easily, but I'm going to grind on this?
You know, if you're talking to a friend or someone that is talking to you about what they're dealing with, it's so easy to forgive somebody else, but not look at ourselves. So we'll take a deep dive into self-forgiveness.
I say, let's kick it off, brother. Here we go.
So that's what is self-forgiveness? Accepting the responsibility for past mistakes without beating yourself up over it, and releasing the burden of guilt and moving forward with self-compassion. So we all know, we've talked about guilt. We talked about shame. Guilt is something that we've done wrong. Okay, we're guilty of it. Shame is that we are wrong. And that is sometimes one of the barriers that we hold on. We think that we're bad people for the things that we've done. And we've made mistakes. And it's hard to recognize what we have gotten into.
Yeah, absolutely. I think there's a part of this too, from like a peer perspective or a societal perspective, where what we need to go around and have our heads bowed down, our tails between our legs because we've made a mistake, we've done something wrong. And of course, it depends on the degree of wrong. But, we're going to let the world know that we know we have made a mistake, and we're trying to humble ourselves in front of everybody by keeping our heads down. And I think there's a place for that. Hey, Mike, I made a mistake. Sorry about that. That's my moment in time where I'm going to bow to you and say, brother, how do I make it right with you? But then at that point, I'm a good person. Why is that? Well, I have a self-awareness to the fact that I am in error, made a mistake. And this is lightweight talking about this versus addiction, versus in your addiction, stealing from people. If that's what happens, your marriage, your relationship breaks up because of the addiction. You lose your job because of the addiction. You go to jail or prison because of the addiction, for example. And I'm just using addiction as an example here. But you can see how those are terrible things I've just talked about. Those are some pretty terrible bullet points.
Yeah.
And I believe there's got to be some wiggle room in, man, I just blew my life up. I just blew up. I just blew everything up. I've lost everything. So I want to humble myself in that, but then ask myself, what am I learning in this process?
Mm-hmm.
So that I can fall forward from this and move forward and get away from it. I'm never going down this road again. I'm going to make amends. I'm going to apologize where I can, where it's appropriate. And now I've got to tighten my belt and start stepping forward and getting back into the sunlight. Because it's horrible to hold on to this for the rest of your life. Horrible.
You bring up a good point about apologies or making amends. And a lot of us have made some serious mistakes in life, and we regret them, and we wish we can turn back the clocks and get into a time machine and change it, but we can't. So, and a lot of us want to rush into asking for forgiveness. Okay, so we'll get to that later too. But if we're looking for forgiveness from someone, they've heard it hundreds of times before. I'm sorry, honey. I'm sorry for this. I'm sorry, mom. I'm sorry, dad. It won't happen again. Well, you know what? Prove it then. And prove it to yourself. So wait on the forgiveness. Wait on making amends until you are more solid in your recovery. Wow. If you don't want it to happen again, start with you. What are you going to do? What tools are you going to use? Because if you think that you're going to go back and use the same things that you did before and expecting different results, it's not going to happen right.
Yeah.
It's not, and it's hard to drop that control because a lot of us have a problem with control and accepting responsibility. But there are some steps to self-forgiveness that we can practice. And it's the process of releasing that guilt, that shame, while taking responsibility for our past actions.
Yeah.
And we can grow from them.
You know, I love that, Mike, that acknowledgement without self-punishment. Recognizing those mistakes, taking responsibility for the mistakes without falling into the excessive self-blame or shame. We all make mistakes. I'm not done yet. I wish I were, Mike. I wish I were done making mistakes. I wish I was done.
Right.
Not going to happen. Not until I'm done on this planet. And I have self-awareness to that. And I also have gentleness to myself as I treat other people gently. When they apologize to me, got it. No problem. No big deal. Let's move forward from here. I want to do the same thing to myself.
Yeah.
I want to encourage myself. I don't want to lay back down in this thing. I want to move forward through it, without punishing myself.
A lot of us do things that are wrong or hurt other people in our lives, and sometimes are not repairable. But then we spend the rest of our lives punishing ourselves over it and keeping those things a secret and feeling shameful for what we've done. And of course, we know that we're guilty over it. We hold all these things. And we forget that we need to start treating ourselves with some compassion and understanding. Like you said earlier, like the same kindness and empathy you would offer a friend who made a mistake. I'm far more willing to forgive you for the things that you've done, but the exact same things that you've done, I've done, I'm unable to forgive myself for it.
Yeah.
And I can't let that go. So give yourself some compassion. Give yourself some empathy. Give yourself some grace.
That's a beautiful word. For whatever the reason is or reasons are, we can have a very rigid sense of responsibility when it comes to not being perfect. And whether it's the way we were raised, the examples from our childhood, developmental years, adolescent years, we can carry that rigid sense of responsibility into our adult life, into our relationships, into the mistakes we make. And it's important to not be so rigid on that. Like Mike, you just said, man, grace. We give others grace and forgiveness. Give it to yourself too.
Right.
And then move forward. Learn and grow. Decide and move forward.
Give yourself a break. Learn from it. Grow from it. Use those past mistakes. We all fail in life. Right? We all have failures. We all have mistakes that we've done.
Yeah.
But use it as a point of growth in your life. Post-traumatic growth. is when you turn something negative into a positive because you change because of that. And it hurts, but moving on from it is really, really beneficial. And if you can just learn from it and make it more of a positive than a negative, in time, you'll be able to see like, well, okay, I made a huge mistake, but now look where I'm at. I worked on myself for a long time. I had to learn acceptance for the things that I've done, who I am, what has happened, my responsibilities for it. However, I had to look at myself and move forward and do this for me and nobody else.
Yeah. There's a piece of parentifying that I notice with my clients, parentifying, that we move into this position when we are trying to make it a learning moment for other people or our kids. And we go down this road of explaining and explaining and explaining until we've explained ourselves into the corner about why your action was unkind. And we can like get on that, beat up the horse in kind of a situation where we're just pounding and pounding and pounding the person because we get locked into that parentifying thing. And then when we become adults, as we go from childhood to adults, that's what we've experienced. Oh, this is what we do to others, and this is what we do to ourselves. We just keep beating ourselves up over and over. Mike, I had one of the most amazing experiences when I was a police officer. I had a sergeant. I was a rookie officer. I was on probation. And long story short, this is back when we had those 90s, pre-2000 rounded off police cars. And they had those bumpers that you could use as a beer bottle opener, just wrapped around the back of the car with chrome and had those really interesting edges that could grab onto things. Well, we did a 960 X-ray, a felony car stop at night, and I was involved in it. And spotlights everywhere, undercover officers everywhere, a helicopter overhead with the spotlight on. So many lights, that they asked me, hey, go move your car out of the way so we can open up the traffic. So I went to move my car, and then I heard people yelling at me to stop. And what had happened was I could not see that the police car to my right, the driver's door was open because we all bail out during the felony car stop and take tactical positions. The bumper, my rear bumper on the passenger side, was moving forward and grabbed onto the driver's door of the police car next to me and was pulling it and thrashing it. I had no idea. I had so many spotlights, I couldn't see anything. And so they yelled at me to stop and then to back up and then to move it away and, and move away from the crushed police car door the best I could. And of course, I'm like, oh my gosh, I just lost my job. I'm on probation. I'm at will. This is it. And everyone saw it there. I'm the rookie and everyone's there. Captain, lieutenant, the helicopter had to see it too, so everyone saw it in my mind. So my sergeant said, okay, well, we'll see what happens with this. There'll be an investigation and we'll go from here. Months go by. I'd almost forgotten about it. And I mean, literally 3 months went by and the sergeant comes up to me one night and he goes, hey, remember that traffic thing you got involved in where your bumper of the car grabbed onto the other patrol car's, driver door? I go, yeah, I do. He goes, yeah, well, they decided to, they investigate it and they want to give you a verbal reprimand. He goes, and the funny thing about verbal reprimands is it's in writing, but I got to give it to you verbally. I go, okay. And he goes, are you ready for your verbal reprimand? And I said, yes, Sergeant. He goes, bad boy. And then he goes, so how's it going? And he moves on. That's my whole point of this dissertation, Mike, is he hit it so quick and so light, told me what the problem was. I already knew how to fix it. My job was at stake. And to move forward. He didn't sit there and parentify me.
Right.
All right, rookie, this is what you did wrong. This is how you got to improve. This is what you're going to do. Otherwise, you're not going to have a job. It wasn't that. It was like, bad boy.
Yeah.
And then he lightened up. How's it going, Jim? I've never forgotten that. I thought that's the kind of sergeant I want to work with. That's the kind of, if I'm ever in a supervisory position, that's the kind of, supervisor I want to be. And it was such a learning moment for me of how to be cool, teach something, and don't beat somebody up over it.
Right.
And there's the problem too, like in our relationships, we've made a mistake, whatever the mistake is, and we're trying to work through it, and we're trying to be gracious and apologize for our mistake that we know full well what we've done, whatever it is.
Right.
And our spouses can't give us the forgiveness. Our boyfriends or girlfriends can't give us the forgiveness. Our workmates can't. Our families cannot. Because we could have done some really bad stuff to them.
Sure.
And that makes it hard too, where we might hold on to that shame and guilt way too long because we want to look downtrodden in their presence.
Yeah.
Because we've hurt them. We know we've hurt them. They're telling us we hurt them and they can't forgive us. At least not yet, if ever. And we might keep our heads bowed down because of that. And that's something that we need to work through. Apologize to you. If you don't accept my apology, well, maybe you will in the future. Or if you ever want to talk, I'm here. I want to make it right with you. But I'm also going to move forward and take care of myself at the same time.
Oh, yeah, definitely. Because sometimes people aren't going to forgive you.
Right.
And it's all about intentions. If you go into it thinking that, hey, I'm going to make amends or I'm going to ask for forgiveness, and if they don't forgive me, I'm going to be devastated. Yeah. Expect it. Look at your life. Take responsibility for it. You made some mistakes. If it was because of drugs, alcohol, just the way you are, anger, get some help for yourself. There is a way out. You can get out of it. But don't use your expectations that someone's going to, forgive you, because they might not. And if they do, great. But that's why we make amends to them, because amends is a little bit better where we're thinking, how do I make this right? And it might be, okay, well, this is the road we're going to take right here, or we're going to try to work on it together. But you make amends where possible, and accepting that some situations can't be changed. Mm-hmm. So we talk about asking forgiveness versus making amends. Asking for forgiveness to me is like I'm saying sorry, please forgive me. Yeah, of course I'm going to forgive you. You're my buddy, whatever. Making amends is, hey, I screwed up. I'm trying to be a better person. I'm working this recovery program in my life. I want to have a better life. I want to do better things. I don't want to make the same mistakes. I know I hurt you. This is the situation. No excuses. How do I make it right? I'm making amends to you. How do I make it right with you? And you might say, I don't know. Keep on doing what you're doing. Or they might say, nothing can make it right, and we're done. Okay, I accept that. I have to move on with my life. Letting go and moving forward.
Absolutely. I was thinking about what we cannot see internally with a person that is struggling with holding on to the guilt and the shame and the lack of self-forgiveness, because what also could be at play is, do you have some clinical depression going on that's tamping you down, that's keeping you in that place of not being able to forgive yourself and move forward? Because sometimes it's really interesting to me. There are people that are so locked into depression that they actually get a hit off of being depressed.
Yeah.
That's like Eeyore walking around versus Tigger all the time, that they lock into that, man, I'm miserable. I'm sorry. My life is screwed. I really messed up. I'm so sorry. The record skips. Man, I'm so sorry. I'm miserable. I wake up. I got this dark cloud following me. If that's the case, we should be looking at that too, because maybe there's the biology, like you always hear me talk about biopsychosocial spiritual, the 4 different lenses that I always look through with every client that are separate, but also weave together. What's if something's happening biological with you? Maybe you have depression or anxiety or the trauma we talk about on this show. Maybe there's other things going on that's keeping you from, biologically, that's keeping you from forgiving yourself. It's important to take a look at those pieces, the psychological pieces, the depression. So you see, we talked about bio. What's it? It is your dopamine, serotonin, adrenaline, or epinephrine biologically that's off balance, or not finding the right receptors, or not refilling itself, not recycling itself. And then the psychology piece, what's if it is depression or anxiety or the trauma pieces, ADHD that's got guilt and shame that's locked into those pieces too. Panic disorder that goes off with a lot of people. The social pieces, are you isolating yourself now? One time, Mike, when I was at church years ago, I was really involved in my old church. And one of the guys that I used to see at church, sadly, he made some mistakes and he had to do some jail time, and he got out of jail, and I saw him in church, and he was sitting way back in the shadows. And I thought, oh my gosh, I'll make up a name. There's Mike. I want to make sure I go say hi to Mike. And so I walk up to him, and he literally wanted to walk away. He was so guilt ridden. And I said, hey, Mike, hang on a second. What's going on? And he goes, oh, I was in jail. I don't know if you know about it. Yeah, I know about it. I'm so glad to see you again. How's it going? And he started telling me the story, and I met with him for coffee afterwards. And I thought, he's really beating himself up. I get it, right? I get it. Why? But I was so happy to see him in church again. And I said, Mike, I go, next time you go to church, why don't you reach out to me? I'll go with you. And I don't think you should be sitting way back here like this in the shadows. Why don't we sit, where we used to sit, more in the middle up front? Let people see you, throw your head back, let people see you. Don't let this beat you down, that self-awareness piece. So back to the social piece. Don't isolate yourself. Strength of the wolf is the pack. Strength of the pack is the wolf. Hat tip Rudyard Kipling. It's really important to not isolate yourself in this piece too. And if you're a spiritual person, if you have a faith, if you pray, you've got to accept that forgiveness is being offered to you too. I hear God like a lot of people hear God. Lord, I messed up. Yeah, I know. Okay, stand up, tighten your belt. Let me dust you off. Let's walk forward together from here. That's what I hear.
So we got the steps of self-forgiveness, acknowledging without self-punishment, understanding and compassion, learning and growing, making amends where possible. And one of the biggest things is letting go and moving forward. So it is hard. Why is it so hard? There's lots of barriers to self-forgiveness. And let's go through a couple of the barriers to self-forgiveness. A rigid sense of responsibility, especially first responders out there listening. The overwhelming duty to protect and serve. It makes it difficult for us to let our guard down and forgive ourselves for what we perceive as failures, whether they're real or imagined. And survivor's guilt, a lot of us go through that. It should have been me. You're experiencing guilt for surviving those traumatic events when others in your life did not. And you might feel responsibility for not preventing the harm. And you know what? A lot of times, most of the times, there's nothing you could have done. There's nothing you could have done. I've talked to many first responders where they say this. I'm like, well, you know what? How do you know? How do you know it would have happened that way, right? All or nothing thinking. If I made a mistake, I'm a failure. This leads to harsh self-judgment, preventing any room for compassion or personal growth. And where do you think this cognitive distortion begins? It usually becomes in childhood, right?
Yeah.
I'm a failure. I'll never be able to live up to this. I never can do anything right. Even when I do it right, it's not right enough. Okay? And we take that into our adulthood. And a lot of times we take it into our 40s, 50s, 60s. We never really work on it until our life becomes so unmanageable and so uncomfortable or painful where we say, okay, I'm giving up this control. I'm surrendering. What do? I need help. I said it. I need help. I can't do this alone. That's where you get the help. But hopefully it doesn't take that long. And hopefully that people can start looking at themselves and try to forgive themselves for things and just not make the same damn mistakes over again. Another barrier, losing accountability. If I forgive myself, then I'm taking myself off the hook. Like you said earlier about depression, you feel comfortable in that depressive state, right? It's 'cause it's so familiar with you, right? Do you deserve to feel that way? Do you deserve to feel like you're getting taken off the hook if you try to forgive yourself? How can anybody forgive me for what I've done? Well, why don't you talk to someone about it? Maybe they will. Quit keeping it as a secret. Perfectionism, just like we talked about. Our culture demands strength and resilience. And a lot of times we make mistakes, like you said earlier, and your sergeant came down and said, hey, it's not as big a deal as you thought it was. It was a mistake. And then we hold ourselves to that higher standard. If anybody sees me fail or make a mistake, I'm afraid of ridicule. I'm afraid of my partners talking about me. It's a fear that we can hold.
Mike, you and I are always talking about the importance of our self-talk. What are we saying within our minds about ourselves that nobody else can hear? Because that internal conversation, we are going to have a million times if not more, all of our life. For the rest of our life, we are going to be talking to ourselves internally. Pay attention to what you're saying. Are you stuck in mean-spirited talk about yourself? Are you throwing F-bombs on yourself? Are you unforgiving to yourself? Do you lack grace and mercy and favor and gentleness and kindness to yourself that you give so easily to everybody else?
Right.
What are you saying on these internal conversations that you can be saying a million times, if not more, for the rest of your life? Pay attention to those and turn them around. If you're not forgiving yourself, start today. Self-awareness.
100%.
You're not an effing idiot. You're not. You're not an effing loser. You're not. You're none of those things. You're human. Welcome to the planet. Start today. Give it that 28-day challenge that we're always talking about. For the next 28 days, monitor your self-talk. Start turning it around and start forgiving yourself. Recall the hurt. Empathize with yourself. Grant yourself the same forgiveness you'd give everybody else, a complete stranger. And by doing this, you're making a conscious choice to forgive yourself and hold on to it. 28-day challenge. Reinforce it daily.
Yeah. And here's some tools, too, you can do with the 28-day challenge for self-kindness versus self-judgment. Write a letter to yourself as you were talking to a friend that's having struggles. What would I say to a friend? Exercise. You can do that, too. When self-criticism arises, pause. Halt if you have to. Wait, why am I talking? If my best friend were in my shoes, how would I support them? What would I say to them? Try to turn it around and say it to yourself. It's okay to do that. That negative self-talk in our head, most of the times it lies, right? Start talking to yourself like you want to be your own best friend. That sounds sort of weird, but it's a great way to think about life. Like, I want to love myself. I want to like myself. I can't remember the last time I liked myself. Have I ever loved myself? Dive into that. Dive into that with a therapist. Talk about these things. What is love for myself? Why does it feel weird if I say that out loud? There's other things too. Daily affirmations. I'm all about positive words, positive word jar. Do that once a day, 28 days. It might last for years like it has for me. Rewriting your negative self-talk. That's another one too. Journaling is so important in recovery, I believe. And if you journal these things, write it down on paper, journal about your self-critical thought, and rewrite it from a place of understanding and love. So change I failed to I learned something valuable. Or if you're in life, I've changed this around too. I always flip the script on things that really bug me. Like, I'm scared of something. I'm fearful to do this. I'm afraid to do this. I change it to, this is excitement. This is an adventure I'm going to go on. Yeah, it's based in fear, right? But it's going to be healthy fear because I'm going to get over it. I'm going to jump over that line of fear. I'm going to be on the other side. There'll be more in front of me, but it won't be as bad as this one. And this one I'll get to look back on and say, that wasn't as bad as I thought it was. I overcame it. And I'm building my self-confidence. There's lots of different tools out there to learn. But I think journaling is really great. What do you think about journaling?
I'm such a fan of it. I've always loved writing things down. And what I love about it is that I can go back in time. Hey, what was I talking about a year ago? What was I talking about, when I was going through that really rough season of my life? What was I putting down on paper? It's always, it's fascinating to me. It shows growth over the years. I've always loved journaling.
Yeah, I've got journals back from when I very first started recovery years ago, and I have them. And sometimes I'll pick one up and I'll look at it back from 2012 or 2013, and I'll read a couple pages, and I remember exactly what was going through my mind at that time. I was pouring my heart out on these pages, and it's very, very, it's healing. It's really healing. For me, it was. It wasn't triggering. It might have been triggering if I fell back into the same rut that I was coming out of. And if I relapsed and I went back to what I was doing before, then it might have been a little bit of painful. But it's not. And I didn't. So There's other mindfulness grounding activities to do.
And listeners, do some research on how to move through and get to a place of self-forgiveness. There's so many studies out there. There's so many tools out there that Mike's talking about. The mindfulness, the grounding exercises, the 1 minute pause where you take 1 minute out of your day.
The steps for self-forgiveness: number 1, taking responsibility. Number 2, processing that emotion. And that might be talking to a friend about it, talking to a therapist about it, but try not to let that define you. Learn from the experience. Identify what can be done differently next time if that next time comes.
Right.
You're able to pause and then release it. Let go of it. Release the guilt. Make peace and move forward and accept whatever consequences. Get through it and press on. My dad always used to say, bite the bullet and press on.
Absolutely. I read where Buddha said, before you speak, let your words pass through 3 gates. Is it true? Is it necessary? Is it kind? Now, that can generally be thought of as talking to other people. But if you internalize this for your self-talk, before you speak to yourself, let your words pass through 3 gates. Is it true? Is it necessary? And is it kind? Are you being kind to yourself? You made a mistake. You're human. Welcome to the planet. Learn, stand up, dust yourself off, tighten your belt, walk forward, say kind things to yourself, and don't forget the value of self-reward. How often do we take other people, our kids, our families, and we buy them a present or we take them for ice cream? When was the last time you took you for an ice cream cone and sat back and said, well done. Well done today.
Do something for yourself, Jim. Thank you for closing it off with that. That was great.
Remember Buddha's words, before you speak, let your words pass through 3 gates. Is it true? Is it necessary? Is it kind?
Right on. All right, everybody out there, thank you so much for listening. I hope you got some stuff out of this. Contact me or Jim if you have any questions or concerns. Reach out for help to somebody if you need some help. Even if you don't think you need some help and something's going on, tell somebody about it. Don't keep it a secret. You don't want to be sick as your secrets, right?
Starting today, right now. Don't wait for tomorrow. Starting today, be kind to yourself. Forgive yourself.
Halt and call for backup. Don't get fooled again.
Thank you for listening to Positive Connections Radio and our series, Halt and Call for Backup, Coast to Coast with Mike Koch and Jim McLintock. Would you like to be on our show? Email Mike at positiveconnectionsradio@gmail.com or Jim at 911therapy@gmail.com. You can also check us out on our YouTube channel and Facebook page. Please help us spread the word and forward Halt and Call for Backup to your first responder contacts. Positive Connections Radio is a part of the Mental Health News Radio Network. Thank you for listening, and until next time, be strong, stand up, speak your truth, and break the stigma.